Yeah. So I think if you're thinking about this sort of thinking about living things as these giant causal structures or these objects that are deep in time, the fact that we have a conscious experience is because we are these temporally extended objects. So consciousness and the abstraction that we have in our minds is actually a manifestation of all the time that's rolled up in us. And it's just because we're so huge that we have this very large inner space that we're experiencing that's not, and it's also separated off from the rest of the world because we're the separate thread in time. And so our consciousness is not exactly shared with anything else because nothing else occupies the same part of time that we occupy.
Well, then if consciousness is merely temporal separateness, then that comes before life.
It's not merely temporal separateness. It's about the depth in that time. The reason that my conscious experience is not the same as yours is because we're separated in time. The fact that I have a conscious experience is because I'm an object that's super deep in time. So I'm huge in time. And that means that there's a lot there that I am basically, in some sense, a universe onto myself because my structure is so large relative to the amount of space that I occupy. I think there's a horizon, and I don't know how to articulate this yet. It's a little bit like the horizon at the origin of life, where the space inside a particular structure becomes so large that it has some access to a space that's not, that doesn't feel as physical. It's almost like this idea of counterfactuals. So I think like the past history of your horizon is just much larger than can be encompassed in like a small configuration of matter. So you can like pull this stuff into existence. This property is maybe a continuous property, but there's something really different about human level physical systems and human level ability to understand reality. What I can also say is like what intelligence is in this framework. So you have these objects that are large in time. They were selected to exist by constraining the possible space of objects to this particular, like all of the matter is funneled into this particular configuration of object over time. And so these objects arise through selection. But the more selection that you have embedded in you, the more possible selection you have on your future. And so selection and evolution, we usually think about in the past sense, where selection happened in the past. But objects that are high density configurations of matter that have a lot of selection in them are also selecting agents in the universe. So they actually embody the physics of selection and they can select on possible futures. And I guess what I'm saying with respect to consciousness and the experience we have is that there's something very deep about that structure and the nature of how we exist in that structure that has to do with how we're navigating that space and how we generate that space and how we continue to persist in that space.